Okay, recording again. Okay, so just for the recording, thank you everybody for joining us. We're starting our job for the Soul, the new series, and we got the book. All right, so let's just dive right into it. So in the beginning of the book, it's very interesting. It gives a little word translation and a little insight into when you hear the concept of Lashon Hara, of evil talk, right, usually there's three different terminologies that you hear. For those that have the book, I think two people have it already. Emily, who's here in person, she was able to receive her book, right? I think Chayalea has a book also. So on page 45, right? And for when you guys get it, you could look it up. Page 45, because there's basically three terminologies that are used when you hear Lashon Hara, when you hear about evil talk. And those are Shmirat HaLashon, Lashon Hara, which is the most common one, and Rechilus. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, right? I remember when I was a teenager, I'm getting a little older, so I could say it was a little while ago, right? I remember when I was a teenager, these terminologies actually got me very confused. Is it Lashon Hara? Is it Rechilus? What is it exactly? What's the difference between the Shmir Shalashon? Right? What are these three terminologies? So let's just translate the words and see what these terminologies represent. So like this, Shmirat HaLashon literally means, Shmira means guarding, right? A shomer, right? A shomer is a guard in modern Hebrew and in biblical Hebrew. So the commentaries say Shmirat HaLashon is the idea of watching. Lashon is your tongue. And so watching your tongue, watching your talk. That is the mitzvah, the overriding, the general, right? The header, Shmirat HaLashon, watching your tongue. Now, under Shmirat HaLashon, there's two main things, and we talked about this. We talked about this in the previous classes when we're talking about sort of the overview. But there's two major topics, which is divided into Lashon Hara and Rechilus. Lashon Hara, right? Lashon is again the tongue. Right? Lashon Hara is, hara means bad, right? Lashon Hara, right, is when it's bad talking, but it doesn't mean it's not true. Lashon Hara is when something is true, when you're saying a truth about something, but it's a negative thing. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Rechilus, what is Rechilus? The word Rechilus always drove me a little crazy. Anybody know what the word Rechilus comes from, if you're not reading it inside? And please feel free to speak up. The word Rechilus comes from Rachel, not Rachel, our matriarch, right? but it means a peddler, right? It means a peddler. That's what it means. A peddler is someone that sells his wares. Now, not to, God forbid, come out with a general statement against all, people that are selling their stuff, and peddlers, or nowadays, people that are in the stores trying to sell you something, right? Which we all love those people. You walk into the store, I can help you, right? You don't get that in Walmart, but if you get that in Macy's or Men Around Town or whatever it is, the different stores that you walk into, right? Personally, I always say I'm good until I actually know what I need, right? Some people like it; they like the attention, like talking or whatever it is, right? But those people, right? They're not intentionally trying to sometimes beef up the product, right? Exaggerate a little bit, not in a negative way, but yeah, this is the best, this is perfect, it's the best. Car dealers, oh my gosh, right? It's the best deal. I'm telling you, we're gonna get this, we're gonna get. I remember we were looking for a car last year, right? When we got our new van, we got it in February, the end of February, and so we're searching for about 2 months till we, thank God, finally got our minivan. And I went from one dealership to another dealership, and of course I was looking at a used van, right? But ones that are more like newer. And I heard almost everything. It's the best deal. We're going to give you the most for your car. This one has this gadget and that gadget, and they're not trying to lie, right? And they're not trying to they're not saying anything negative. But a lot of times peddlers, and in Talmudic talk, this is what it's referring to. You try to peddle your ear, you exaggerate on things, right? You exaggerate on things, you don't necessarily always say the truth. And therefore, regarding one who is peddling his mouth, right, so to say, right, one who is speaking excessively, when you speak excessively and you try to be within the in of talking and making sure that you know what's going on, and you're the one that's that constantly has something to say, you know what's going to happen a lot of times? Unfortunately, you're going to say lies. Right? Unfortunately, you're going to exaggerate on things. Oh my gosh, you know what happened to me the other time? You know, I was hanging from a nail on the cliff of a mountain, and it's a little extreme, but it happens, right? People exaggerate the story. You tripped on the broom in the house, and you make a whole big story out of it, right? The window broke, and you should have seen what happened, right? We had this commotion, and there was a hurricane, and the tree fell, and it broke, and this, and we had glass everywhere, and we tried to sell the story, right? We try to sell the story. And therefore, you are being a rachel, you're being a peddler. Now, a peddler, regarding Lashon Hara, is someone that says something that's not true. Now, it's important to know where these words come from. And I could have just said, like we said last time, Rechilas is when he says something that's not true, that's negative. And that's true. That's what it is. Right? But it's important to know where it's coming from. You know why? Because we have to be guarding ourselves. As we said, Shmirat Lashon is guarding our tongue. We have to be aware of what we're guarding. And that's what we're going to start getting into. We're not going to talk about Rechilas right away. Right now, we're going to talk about Lashon Hara, right? But we're going to talk about Rechilas. Sort of, it's going to intertwine, if I remember correctly, the way the book does. Chavetz Chaim himself deals first with Lashon Hara, and then he deals with Rechilas. We'll have to see how this book deals with it. But it's important to be aware of how the psyche of how these things happen. Lashon Hara is because it's true. It's true. It's true. Rechilos is when you're peddling your talk. You just want to be able to talk. And when you want to be able to talk, a lot of times you say things that are not true. And a lot of times those things come out to be negative things about other people, or about even a product, or about a place. Because sometimes the things that sell, as we are very well aware in the news, right? Very rarely do you have, let me rephrase that. There's now a thing called the positive news update. Right? The positive news moment. You might have heard this on the radio. I might not be saying it exactly the way it is, right? But or certain news agencies have a section, the positive news, the good moment. It's like a thing that they highlight, right? Once an hour or twice a day, right? Because positive news doesn't sell, unfortunately, right? Unfortunately, that doesn't sell. It's the negative, it's the bad, it's the shootings, and it's the stealings, it's the this, it's the that. So since that's something that sells, that's what people peddle. That's what people try to sell. And we have to be aware of that within ourselves. So now let's get into the book itself. So number one, all right? Day number one. And since most of you don't have the book, I'm gonna read some of it inside, but I'm gonna more talk about it on the outside. So, as we said, Lashon Hara is when something is true. And something's 100% true, that's Lashon Hara. So, can we speak Lashon Hara when it's 100% true? No. But the dilemma is like this. You have a coworker, right? Or a boss, right? More, let's say you work for a tyrant. You work for a tyrant. Or, let's rephrase it to something that a lot of us are not working in the field, or we know people that are working. We have a neighbor who's just a nudge. I have a neighbor that's a nudge, right? Or you have a family member who's gets on your nerves, right? And but he or she is a learned person, right? And they learn with your neighbor, your next door neighbor, or a friend of yours, and they only see this individual in a positive light. They only see this individual in a positive light. Their interaction with individual, however way you want to make the situation, they have it as your worker. You work for a tyrant, right? And your next door neighbor learns with him because he lives in a different part of town, but you know him through work, or however way the situation is. But the bottom line is, let's use the names Reuven and Shimon. Right? Those are going to be the majority times we use those names, Reuven and Shimon. It's accepted in education that the first two of the tribes usually are used for examples. So Reuven is a tyrant. Reuven is a nudge. Reuven gets on, he drives you crazy. You know he does something that's not right. He's just, in your relationship with him, he's just not a good guy. But your next door neighbor or your cousin or your friend or whatever it is has a totally different relationship with him. They know him as the person that gives a class. They know him as someone that is learning with them at night. They know him as someone that says good morning to them, right? Every morning when they're jogging. Whatever it is. Their interaction with him is limited, right? But their interaction with him is a positive interaction. So now the question is, use our thumbs, right? The question is, right, are you allowed to tell him or her, that, that guy or that person that you think is a good person, they're not a good person. I'm telling you, I'm not lying. I can tell you stories of how the way they talk to their workers, they spit in their face, right? They talk negative to them. They constantly call them names at work. You lazy, good for nothing, and you just drop dead, right? Or just harsh things, right? Harsh things. And I know, I'm not lying. I videoed it. I have a recording. I'm not lying. But the other person, right, is their situation, what their interaction is an interaction that's positive. And this happens a lot, more than we think, because different people have different relationship situations. If it's coworkers, if it's a boss and a worker, if it's a neighbor, right, if it's whatever it is, your sports buddies, and therefore you see the person in a whole new light. So are you allowed to tell that person, hey, just be wary. That guy has a side to him that's not so good. So what do you guys think? Are you allowed to, yes or no? So Emily gave the thumbs down, but she has a book. No, just kidding. Anybody else? What do you guys think? Feel free to speak up or.
And what were the, sorry.
Go ahead, what were you saying?
What were the choice?
Are you allowed to tell the other individual, right, sees this person in an okay light because their interaction with them is limited, right, to being a neighbor or being their sports buddy, or they go shopping together, or they get coffee once in a while, right? Their interaction with that person is limited and they don't see that side of that person. Are you allowed to tell them, hey, just be wary, that person is a tyrant, he's not a good person? Okay, very good. So Cindy says depends. And Elisheva, you said no unless there's a possibility of harm or danger. Okay, good. So you're all on the right track. And as I said, this is an easy question. Right? We're building up slowly. Right? So the halakha is you're not allowed to. Because Lashon Hara, as we said, is even if it's true. Even if it's true, you know this person is not a good person. Right? You know. Right? You know this person's not a good person. But there's no toeles, there's no gain, right, for that person to know. They're not going to be involved in that relationship with that person. They're not working for him. They're sports buddies. There's a neighbor. They say hi to him, right? So unless, and the toeles, it's called something that there's a the necessity, right? There's a reason for your protection. Then otherwise you're not allowed to. Now, what is the categories of what is considered protection? For necessity? It's an excellent question, right? We're going to see that later, right? There's a whole section of 7 rules of toeles, 7 rules for why you're allowed to say Lashon Hara. That's not Lashon Hara because you're allowed to say it, but 7 rules of what is considered for a positive benefit. So it's not just because you think it's right, which is unfortunately a lot of times. I really think that person should know, and they should really know because it's better for them. There's 7 rules. 7 rules, what makes it right or wrong. So we're going to have to wait for that, right? I see they say that's on page 328, all right? So that's going to be in a little while, right? And we're not going to jump there because we're going in order, but it's important to know if a situation does come up for someone, so then feel free to either contact me or contact your local Orthodox rabbi, right? And find out if this is under toeles. But right now for our class, since this is a practical halakhic class regarding the laws of Lashon Hara, I am saying this. We didn't say that in Pirkei Avos or other things. Right? But right now we're going to go in order, and it's important to know that you're not allowed to say, you have to hold your tongue. And even though, and I'm going to say even more, A lot of times why people say something is because it bothers them. And it bothers you. This guy or this girl, right? This neighbor of yours, you like them a lot. You like hanging out. And they keep on saying how nice of a guy this person is. And this person drives you crazy. This person drives you crazy. So you know, and you keep on hearing it. So it's a lot harder than one thinks. Oh, just keep your mouth shut and don't say anything. No, it could become a lot harder than you think because you're constantly hearing positive things about that individual. So how are some tricks of how to hold your tongue? How are some ways to reflect? Now we're going to get into more of growing in your awareness of Lashon Hara and how to control yourself. So I want you all to stop and think for a second, right? Or maybe 2 seconds, right? Have you been in a situation, right? Have you ever been in a situation where you wish you could take back what you said? I have, right? Who hasn't? Who hasn't been in a situation where you wish you could take back what you said, right? If it's to your spouse, if it's to your kids, right? Or if it's to a friend, a colleague, a neighbor, your parents. Everybody always, if you stop to think for a second, everybody has something that they wish they could roll back time and not have said that. And so the commentaries say one has to start and thinking about that. Because Rechavetz Chaim says a very powerful line, and this is a line that everybody has to imprint in their brain. Right? I'm going to read it, I'm quoting it. Before you speak, you are in charge of your words. Once you speak, it is in charge of you. You are its hostage. Before you speak, you are in charge of your words. Once you speak, it is in charge of you. You are its hostage. My friends, this statement cannot be more true than ever. We have to realize that before we say something, before it comes out of our mouth, or text it, or post it. Nowadays, speaking is the same thing. There's other forms of speaking, posting something, texting something, commenting, emailing. You have the control of how to say that, of what's going to be the outcome of it. Once it's out there, it's done. Yes, on WhatsApp, you could delete the message. First of all, someone might have seen it already, right? But it's out there. Social media, it's out there. Someone's seen it. Someone shared it. It's gone. It's over. Can't take it back. Anybody had it by mistake? They send an email. Oh my gosh! Oh no! Send it to the wrong person. And so Gmail now has that after you have like 10 seconds to get rid of the email. And I use that feature all the time. Right? Not all the time. Right? But thank God, I've had it only for when I realized I forgot to check spell checker, or other things like that. Nothing too dramatic. But once it leaves, it's gone. We have to realize that we lose control. So do you want to be someone in control, or do you want to be someone that lost your control? So what we have to do is we have to stop and reflect and think and realize that, yes, you have this urge to set the record straight. How many times have you heard that? We just have to set the record straight. I just need to set the record straight. This guy is not the way he seems. This girl is not the way she seems. And we feel we have to set the record straight. But that's Lashon Hara. There's no purpose for it. There's no purpose for it. And so, and realizing that the second it leaves your mouth, unfortunately, what happens a lot of times when you want to set the record straight? You're the one that looks like a tyrant. You're the one that looks, really? Nah, not that guy. Not really. Are you sure? Maybe you're exaggerating. So the number one is for you to realize, right, that you lose control. Number two, realize also that the other person might not perceive it as you would like them to perceive it. So you're not even going to gain anything. Right? All you're going to do is you're going to create a wedge in between you and that individual that you want to be friends with, or you are friends with. Because they don't want to hear bad things unless it's, again, toelis, it's for a benefit. Because the person said at work, oh, that buddy that I have, I'm just being friends with him just to be able to get to someone else, and then I'm just going to drop. Whatever it is, whatever toelis is. But otherwise, most people, we all have different relationships with different people. So step number 2 to talk to yourself and to control yourself, right, is by realizing that the other person in the situation that we're in right now, there's many different situations. In the situation that we're in right now, the other person might not even hear what you have to say, might not even take it the way you think it's going to go. So your whole toela, your whole purpose of doing it, because I have to set the record straight, is it's going to backfire on you. So there's one more idea that I want to talk about about here, and then we will move on to the next one. We still have some time. Give me 1 second. So the other things like this also, that you have to start and think, right, that we don't know what's going on in the other person's mind. Right? And this falls under Don Lekufsko's judging one favorably, right? Which is a big connection to this, right? It's important to reflect and say, 1 second, this person's a tyrant at work. He's mean. We don't know why. Maybe in essence, he's a good person. Maybe he's getting it from his boss, and he's getting pressure from his boss, and that's why he's being rough on us and being tough on us. Right? Maybe your next door neighbor is driving you crazy about your garbage cans. Right? It's because his wife or her husband or whatever it is, or growing up, his or her parents were around. Who knows? You can start thinking of a million reasons. It doesn't mean to say that the situation that you're in with this individual defines the individual also. That's something very important to realize. That just because this person is acting out in a certain way, and it's not right, I'm not justifying it, it's not right, but it doesn't necessarily define this individual in every aspect that he's in. That now you have to set the record straight, and it's for the benefit of that person. You think it's for the benefit of that person. It's because it could be the situation that you are in with that person triggers that person, and he acts in an insane way. He acts in a not nice way. He acts in a way that is not becoming an individual. And that happens. So you also have to start and think, right, that by you going ahead and telling other people, you're changing reality of what people perceive this person and who this person really is. This person is a nice guy. She is a great person. She helps out and she likes doing chesed and everything. But when she gets into a certain situation, gets pressed against the wall, whatever it is, whatever the situation might be, under pressure, then they change. They change. Right? They change. And since they change, it doesn't define who they are. And by you now spreading your interaction with this person, you are now changing the reality of who this person really is, right? So it's something, another thing to think about I froze? Hello? No? Okay, Sherry, I think it's your computer. It's important to you to realize that you see one thing about this person, one situation about this person. It might be the majority of your day, but it's one part of this person, and you are now making assumptions, and you're going to spread about the whole person. Now, that person needs to work on themselves, don't get me wrong, but you're making an assumption about that person. Cindy, you asked the question, what if they ask you for your opinion? Right? Are you two with info, okay, or since line? Excellent question. What happens if they ask you? All right, so we're not going to touch on that question right now, because it falls under again, if there's toelis, if there's a purpose, but it really is a great question that leads to the next halakha, and I'll tell you why. Let's turn the page for those that have the book. Those that don't, please get it today or tomorrow or by next Wednesday in the office. Right? It's a good excuse to come and visit Eitz Chaim again for a couple of minutes. So the next halakha, we're going to start it. We have another 10 minutes. Let's get into it. Right? next halacha is like this. A very interesting situation. And I'm going to go straight to the dilemma. Right? The story they give is Purim. I'm just going to change the story a little bit because it's just an example that's more of more bigger cities. We don't really have this here. So someone's going to collect money by someone. Right? Someone is a very wealthy person, a billionaire, let's say. Right? And they're going to collect money by them. So it's, I'll just use this story. It makes it easier. There's in bigger cities on Purim. There's it's not a custom, it's not a law, right? But sort of it has developed in Toronto, New York, Chicago, and other larger Jewish communities where yeshivos, high schools and beis medrash, yeshiva, send out their students, their bachrim, their students to go ahead and collect money. They dress up and they dance and it's nice and it's customary. People have people coming into their house anyways, and it's a festive time for them. And so they go and collect money for the yeshiva of that they go in, or for an organization or whatever it is. That's sort of something that I remember. I went with my classmates and my yeshiva guys, and the situations like this. You have a list of, let's say, 15 people to go to, and one person on your list. Right, let's call him Mr. Ruvain. Right, Ruvain is our friend. Right, so Mr. Ruvain, right, is extremely wealthy. He is worth $1 billion. Let's say, okay, why not? Let's make him worth $1 billion. As I had a rabbi once said, once we're making it up, let's just make it up good. Right, he's worth $1 billion. And so you're all excited. I got this person on my list. I'm going to get a big check. It's going to be great. All right, so you leave him for last. Right? You leave him for last, you go to everybody else, and you're going to end the day with a bang. Right? You go to the person's house, and he has a big room, and he has hot food. And I remember doing this. We used to, there's certain people that actually prepared food. They knew people were coming, and there was music in the background. And so, you hang out there for a little bit, and you eat a little bit, and then it's your turn, because other people are also collecting, and it's your turn to go ahead and talk to Mr. Ruvain. All right, so you go and you talk to Mr. Ruvain, and he said, my yeshiva. He said, I went to that yeshiva too, and you reminisce about the Rosh Yeshiva, and he was all excited. And you're, I'm going to get a big check. And he writes you a check, and you never look at the check when you're in the room. You walk out of the house, and you look at the check, and lo and behold, how much did he write you? $100. $100. $100 is a nice check, but like, come on, for this guy, like $100? Right? You're expecting, $500. You're hoping $1,000 check. Right? Got $250 check. $100. And so everybody, all your friends and buddies, because you're the head of the group, right? You go usually with 5, 6 people. They say, how much did he give? How much did he give? We got a big check. How much did he give? And then you get back to yeshiva and everybody's, we knew you got Mr. Ruvain. How much did he give? Are you allowed to say, right, you gave $100? They ask you, right? So the question's like this. You're in this tight situation. If you say, right, you gave $100 only, right? People are going to say, this cheapskate. $100, he's worth $1 billion, right? They gave $100? Like, come on. And if you say, he gave such a massive check, like Cindy said, you're lying. Right? That was Cindy's question, you're lying. And if you're going to say, I don't want to answer the question. Everybody's going to start realizing there's a fishy thing going on over here. You're already creating a narrative of something fishy, something people are going to be curious about, a curious situation. So what are you supposed to do? How do you avoid the situation? Guys, what do you think? It's a little harder than the one before, right? The other one's pretty easy, right? Don't say anything, right?
You're asking what do you do if someone asks you how you did?
Yeah, like Cindy asked, right, in the chat.
I think you say he gave me $100 check, and I think you need to. It's not only what you say; it's what you look like when you say it. And you shouldn't look disappointed. You shouldn't look sad. You're stating a fact, and you're really not in charge of what other people think of that.
Okay. So you're saying, Jim, you're saying that. I want to home in on a line that you said. You're not in charge, right, of what people think of what you're saying. You're saying the true fact, right? And you're not necessarily meaning to say negative, right?
And you're saying you're saying it with kindness. You're not going, you gave me $100 and hang your head. You matter of factly answer the question, because there's not a reason to hide it, because there really shouldn't be ashamed of it, because we don't know what's going on. Maybe it's a test. Maybe he gave us $100 check to see if we're grateful, and then if we are grateful and don't whine and complain, he sends a big check. You just don't know. So
so now you're saying a little more. Now you're saying a little more, and well, let's get back to what you're saying in a minute. Let's just see if anybody else has any thoughts. Okay, what you're saying, you just added a couple of things. And we're going to talk about that, but just let me see if anybody else has anybody. Anybody else want to chime in over here? Any other thoughts? Okay, Jim, looks like you had the floor today. So let's chime in a little bit on what I want to talk about. 2 points. All right. Number one, just because you're saying the truth and you have no intention of saying something harsh. It's not like the case before. You're saying, like, that guy's really a cheapskate. That guy, right? He's really a mean guy. He's not nice. Right? So you don't mean to say, right? You don't mean to say something negative, and you're not saying words that are negative. It's objective. It's your, but we'll see the lashon hara is sometimes also, right? When, right? When, is that better? Right? Lashon hara is, right? Sometimes also, right, when it's things that you say that seem harav, right? Just to use the terminology of food, seem harav, but if people are going to misunderstand it, people will take something negative out of it. You have to be careful about that. And we're going to see that later, and that's one of the things that is being talked about over here, right? That how things can be perceived is also something that you have to be concerned about, because even though you had no intentions of saying something harsh, right? But if, for example, another great example, right? And again, we're not going into all scenarios, and I didn't even look at the next page yet today, so I don't know what the next one talks about. So I don't want to get myself into hot water that we have nothing to talk about tomorrow, right? I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about, right? But another example is, when you go to a restaurant, someone asks you, how was the restaurant? Was it good food or not good food? What are you supposed to say? Right? So if it was good food, yeah, it was delicious, it was great. Let's say it wasn't to your liking. I don't know, it was okay. So Jim, you're right. It depends on how you say it, right? But by just saying, even if you say it straight, it was okay. It was okay. I mean, it was okay. And we say it's okay, and then the person's like, no, I really mean it. It was okay. It was really okay. It was okay. So we have to realize that what people perceive from what we're saying is also a problem. It's also a problem. All right. So what is this person supposed to do? So Jim, I want to home in on the other thing that you said, and that's the answer that they give over here, right? And it's sort of a case study for other situations. Right? You pointed out, you said, right, add in some stuff, like maybe he's going to give us, maybe he's testing us, right? Maybe he's going to give another check later. So the example they give is that the guy was saying, right, what this boy said, and that's why I use this situation, this example. He says that, he gave us, he gave me a 16-year-old student, right, or a 20-year-old student, $100 check, but I'm sure he's probably going to give, he's going to send a check to the yeshiva or to the headmaster, or he gives on the annual, fundraising drive. I'm sure he gives a very nice check, right? But at least it was nice of him to give us something, right, to make us feel good, and coming out. So it means to say that you're in your conversation, right? You're not lying. You're going to say what he gave, right? Because you don't want to make a whole scene out of it. But at the same time, you are also making and putting into people's heads that I'm a 16-year-old bacher, right? I'm a 6-year-old kid or a 20-year-old kid or whatever it is, right? But there's people that work for the yeshiva, people that are the fundraisers for the yeshiva, right? And therefore, they're probably going to give the larger check in that situation. Another example that this happens sometimes, right, is, let's say schools do a raffle, right? And you think, you're going to go to this person, they're going to buy you, 20 tickets because they're, and you send your kids or you call them and they buy 2 tickets. And it's like, what? You only bought 2 tickets? I can't believe it, right? But think about it for a second, right? What they I'm sure are getting, right? I don't know for sure, but we can make an assumption that when the head of school calls or the person that's in charge of the fundraising drive calls, right? That's where they want to get their money or the dinner or whatever it is, right? They're just being they want to help the kid out and buy some tickets, but they're not going to give their big money in that situation. And so that's another similar example where, oh, how many tickets did that person buy? Right? Oh my gosh, you had that person on your list. Right? So you say, yeah, it was very nice that he or she, made my kid feel good, and they bought $200 worth of tickets, $100 worth of tickets. But I'm sure, like, for the dinner, that's where he gets his big money, when the head of school calls him, or the person in charge of the fundraiser, right? That's where they give their big money. So you are you're showing that you recognize that you're not saying it in a negative way. You actually turn it into something positive, right? You turn it into that. You're showing that this person, right, is possible giving in other places, and whatever other situation that is in, and every case is different. That regarding this situation where it's not a negative thing, but there could be a negative connotation. If you can add some information to your answer, not just giving a yes or no answer, but actually giving, for example, back to the case of the restaurant, right? You can say, the service was great. Talk about things that are positive. The service was great. The people were really nice. The decor was awesome. I'm very picky. I say sometimes, I'm a picky eggplant parmesan eater. That's what I am. I like eggplant parmesan. And when I go to restaurants, a dairy restaurant, I like ordering eggplant parmesan if they have it. And I'm a little picky about my eggplant parmesan. I am, right? I don't know why, right? But ever since I've been a teenager, and I'm a little picky about my eggplant parmesan. And I tell if someone asks me, oh, how was? So listen, I'm a picky eggplant parmesan person. It was good, right? I'm a picky eggplant parmesan person. I've gone to many restaurants, and I like my eggplant parmesan a certain way. Right? It doesn't make it that it's not a great eggplant parmesan, but so I bring into the conversation why my words should not make it, right, that it's definitive of how it is. Just another example. So, Cindy, back to your question. What happens in the other case where there's they ask for your opinion? Right? I didn't give a complete answer because this is not the place. It's a little different of a situation. Right? But one of the ways is, number one, is always trying to avoid saying lashon hara, and always trying to avoid saying lashon hara. And we'll see about that. Now, if the toelis, if there's a reason, then we have to say the answer, but again, within limitations, but that's not what we're holding right now. So if you have an actual practical situation, we could talk about that off here, right? And we could look through what the practical applications are and what's a toelis and what's the benefit and what is a toelis and what's not the toelis. But for a general question right now, what I'm bringing out from lesson 2 is that there are situations where you're allowed to answer the question, right? But you have to be careful that even the way it's perceived does not come out negative, and try to avoid, right? Trying to make sure that you add in some information that it's not going to be perceived as a negative answer. And if you're asked, you're not going to lie, right? If you're really up against the wall, right, then you have to really figure out a way. And again, we're going to talk about that of avoiding the situation, changing the dialogue, saying certain things that show that you're not an expert on this situation, even though you might be. Again, those are good questions, and we're not doing the whole book of Lashon Hara in one day, right? But this, regarding these 2 lessons, these are 2 important things that we spoke about today. I'm going to turn off the recording. I apologize.